This is the Ross Grimsley Show, hosted by former Orioles and All-Star pitcher Ross Grimsley and Stan the Fan Charles. The Ross Grimsley Show is brought to you by Sliders. Stop by Sliders, Baltimore's favorite local sports bar, to watch all of the big games, enjoy a fancy Clancy beer, and their daily food specials. Sliders is located just 771 feet from home plate, across from Camden Yards. And now, take it away, Ross.
Hey, Ross Grimsley here. Kyle with me also. Got to thank everybody for all the views over the last couple of weeks. It's been outstanding. And any questions, you can go to Ross Grimsley, R. Grimsley 2 on Twitter and Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. I think one of the questions last week that I got was about coming over here from the Reds and who was most instrumental, or not instrumental, but who was kind of a mentor to me.
Sure.
Win 37 games with the Reds in 3 years.
I only had about 30.
Yep, close enough. But yeah, and then coming over here with Jim Palmer, Dave McNally, Mike Cuellar, and winning 37 games, pretty good.
Sure.
I had so much to learn, and I wanted to pick these guys' brains. But the question was who was kind of a mentor to you. And I learned a little bit from each guy, but the guy that was really, really big time was Mike Cuellar. He was really a mentor that really helped me. And I used to chart him. I pitched behind him,
okay,
so I had to chart him earlier.
Location and all that?
Everything. We did the whole thing. So, yeah, it was but Mike Cuellar was the guy.
So would you rather have robots do it nowadays?
I'll get to that in a minute. That's on my list today. So, but, that was great. The other thing, I was at a Preakness party with my son, Dan and Lisa Rocker.
Okay.
And they had a lot of friends over there. And one of the questions, and this happens all the time, people asked, who is the toughest person to face?
Sure.
So I go, and my standard answer was pick a team. So anyway, but the number one thing, and I was talking last night, with my wife Bird about Thurman Munson was probably the toughest guy that I had to face. And she used to give me, what did you throw him? Did you throw him into the changeup? I went, yeah. And that was my best pitch. So, and he would hit it. He had a knack to go to right center field. So it was.
So then in the scenario where a pitcher is best pitch is not an option, like you just have to locate your other stuff, essentially.
And the big thing, and I tell you what, if you want to know about baseball in general, listen to John Smoltz. I mean, he is right on with a lot of stuff, and he made a comment the other day about pitching, and no matter all the numbers that you have, all the analytics, you're on the mound, and if the guy's a good fastball hitter and the fastball is your best pitch, you got to throw it because you're doing yourself a disservice. Now, he's saying you tell young pitchers now if they want the help, and a lot of them don't.
Sure.
Not all of them, but a lot of them don't. I mean, to tell them that, you get beat with your best pitch, and if it happens to be his strength,
sure,
you're in trouble. But you just had to find a way to locate it and whatever. But that was I found that quite interesting with him. But if you want to know something, he is right on with the robo strike zone and what have you. He's got that. I'll get into that in a second. But
I was talking about best pitch.
Oh yeah,
Andrew Cashner was running up to like 97. It seemed in like the fifth inning, which is
really. I mean that just shows. But the thing, and you talk about pitchers now, and the first thing they say, how hard does he throw? No one says does he throw strikes. He's got electric stuff.
Sure.
He throws. He can throw the ball through a building, and this. But no, does he throw strikes? Can he locate the pitch? And that's the big thing now. If you can throw 95, 96 and locate the ball, and Cashner's been throwing very well, and you saw that from the very beginning of the season.
I think it bears mentioning that it's not easy, I would have to think, for a major leaguer to stay focused. And I mean, look, you're doing your job. You're paid to do this. That's something that that's what you're expected to do. But on a team that's not expected to go very far and that probably will finish, I mean, most likely at the bottom of the division, maybe at the bottom of the American League, he's been going out there every fifth day and putting together quality performances, and it's putting himself in a position where the Orioles have to be liking the possible value that they could get for him at the deadline.
Exactly. I mean, he's a guy that could go to a contending team, and the way he's pitching, if he continues to do it, but he keeps you in the game, from the start. And the Orioles, they struggled at times hitting and fielding and whatever,
sure,
which they're going to do. But he's a guy that could possibly bring you something back, but you want to – and talking to the fans last night, I did the suites at Camden Yards.
Yeah.
And a lot of fans, they understand the what's going on, the rebuild, but still they want somebody on the team or that can make you somewhat competitive.
Absolutely.
And be in the game. It's not fun to go
out there.
It's a fine
line, right?
It's not fun to go out there and watch as a fan to pay X number of dollars and then even more for concessions and
to be
watch.
fair, right? The Camden Yards is very nice, and they allow fans to bring food from outside, and there's more leniency in that regard. But I absolutely hear what you're saying. It's just now, when is it? Are you stopping the young guys from getting a chance?
Yeah,
and when is it? Can you add more young guys to the fold? So it's a little bit of a delicate balance.
It's a fine line. You don't want to spend too much money, but you want to be somewhat competitive and make the games interesting, even if they don't win.
But I would think that if Andrew Cashner is pitching this well, and you'd have to think that, look, doing it in the AL East is certainly something that teams are noticing.
Right.
Then the Orioles would be foolish to not explore that market and probably try to trade him.
If they can,
because he's not going to be there in 4 years, right?
Everybody is up to be traded. If the price is right and you get the people that you want, then everybody is available. I mean, they put guys through waivers. They put everybody on the team through waivers, no matter who they are.
So what was most important last night that you saw from Cashner to be able to have that good performance?
He's around the plate. He changed his speed. His changeup has been outstanding. His breaking pitches are good, but location and the whole thing, and you've heard it before, everybody hears it, it's fastball location. Everything goes off your fastball. What you do to start the game, you establish your fastball, and you should establish that you'll throw it inside. Mm-hmm. So there's times to do it, and if it's a strike inside, you can double up sometimes, but you want the hitters to look inside because the pitch down and away to left-handers and right-handers is what the pitch is going to. Most of the time, you're going to get guys out overall percentage-wise. So that's he's been able to change up. Has been really good. Now working with the new pitching coach, Brocal.
Yeah, I believe that's his name.
Brocal. Anyway, working with him, he worked with him before, so that this is a guy that could possibly help him. But you saw from the very first start, that he started that he was doing something a little bit different down in the zone.
Brocal. We'll say
Brocal. Yeah, I didn't want to get
we're not promising that's the correct pronunciation.
But anyway, we'll get to the Orioles. We got Gary Kendall on today, who's a AAA manager at Norfolk, and he's been in the organization a long time. So we'll talk to him, but then we'll go to the Orioles a little bit more. But one of the things that I got to bring up, and obviously Preakness.
Sure.
We watched Preakness, and we saw Kentucky Derby, what went on there.
Yes.
So the Preakness, the big thing about the Preakness, War of Will won the Preakness, but the big story was the guy getting bucked off.
It was indeed
Bodie Express.
Yes.
John Velasquez. Now that was amazing, but
thankfully he was all right, right?
He's fine. He's fine. He just at the last minute he bucked, but that's not the big story. It gets weirder and weirder. But the day before, one of the horses died.
Yeah,
he died
in the Philly races.
In the Philly, he ran, collapsed and died. Well, even stranger, in Santa Anita the same day, another horse the same day ran and died. Okay, it gets even weirder. So that was the 25th horse at Santa Anita that has died since December 26th.
Okay.
26 horses died at Santa Anita since December 26th.
That's very
That's
odd.
not funny, but it's absolutely in racing. You get PETA gets a little upset with him. So
sure.
You got 26. Something's got to be
That's
wrong
too many.
out there. No,
that's
that
too
is
many.
way too many. Now, I'm a big horse. I love horses. I'm a little nervous around them because they're so massive. But
they are pretty huge.
It was but that was something that I just had to bring that up.
That's pretty staggering.
That was amazing. But 26 horses. And the horse that died the other day, they went 6 weeks without having anything. But they got a array of injuries, a shoulder injury for a horse, obviously legs break and what have you. But yeah, that was something.
I mean, that's a pretty crazy number. I mean, in baseball, like it's something comparable. Like when Shane Bieber went and dominated the Orioles on Sunday, like he apparently induced, like there were 51 either swinging or looking strikes.
This guy was on. I mean, he would have done that against anybody. But that was
the most no pitcher this year has had. Like Chris Sale had 17 strikeouts that one game, and he only had 50. Bieber had induced more than Sale.
They were talking about how the Orioles didn't swing any strikes. Well, those balls coming in looked like strikes, and the breaking balls fed. But he was around the plate. You want to see. That's what you want to see pitchers do. Those strikes get ahead in the count, keep the ball down in the zone. You do that, you'll get away with the pitch up in the zone, which is, a lot of guys do now.
Who's your favorite pitcher in the big leagues right now? I mean, you were a pitching coach for Bumgarner, so I mean, you might be a little partial in that regard. But who's the guy that you think any era you'd plop, he would still be just?
Well, Verlander, Sale. He started off, but they started the whole Red Sox team started off poorly because they didn't pitch in spring training. But Sale is tremendous. With the stuff he's got, Verlander, Scherzer, those guys are, they have their heads on and know and are able to make adjustments and change their thinking, where other guys, it's really hard to get them to change. They get a mindset, and it's like some of the Oriole pitchers, Castro, Yacobonis, these guys are max effort people, and they haven't learned it. Tanner Scott, when he's under control, when they're all under control at those strikes, they're around the plate. But when they start overthrowing, Gibbons, another guy, when he gets in trouble, he tries to overthrow.
Well, it's tougher as a reliever, right? Like you're told as a reliever that you're supposed to gain 5 miles per hour on your fastball, and you're supposed to go full bore, right?
But it's a power game now. But if you can't throw it over the plate, we talked about this before. If you can't throw it over the plate, why are you trying to throw as hard as you can? You can't do anything 100%, other than hustle.
Sure.
That's another thing I got to talk about today. Excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat.
You're all right.
But you saw Robinson Cano the other day. Hits a ball back to the pitcher.
Future Hall of Famer, most likely.
Doesn't run. Double play.
Bad look.
Double play. Doesn't run. Said there were 2 outs. Thought there were 2 outs. The scoreboard said 2 outs. Wrong. It didn't say 2 outs.
Now, had he ran, you're saying he would have been safe at first? The amount of time?
At least run. You can't walk.
100%. No, I'm not here advocating for just sitting in the batter's box.
No, exactly. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm trying to. He took off and just he thought he was out. Well, there was 1 out, so double play. So, okay, you thought there were 2 outs.
Technically, you're still supposed to run it out even if there are 2 outs.
Well, yeah. You never know what's going to happen, especially if it's back to the pitcher. Most of the errors they make are throwing errors. The next day, he hits a ground ball in front of home plate. He doesn't run again.
Maybe he thinks he's earned that. I mean, it's not. Look, you're a veteran. You're probably supposed to be setting a little bit of a better example than that.
Yeah, and that gets to another point I got. So, there's 2 things right there. This is a Hall of Famer, a leader. You got to make at least an effort. So Mickey Callaway, the manager for the Mets, talks about Jose Bautista, who's a big favorite here in Baltimore.
Sure.
So here's a guy who he's tremendous. He's done a lot for the team. He's great to have the young kids be around him. He learns so much. So he swings and misses third strike. The ball goes back, hits the backstop, drops. He just walks back to the dugout. Catcher picks it up, throws to first base, easy, you're out. So is that an example? And he's a tremendous hitter. He was 0 for 19 at the time, and Sunday he went 0 for 5 again, 0 for 24. So my whole point is, again, and it happened in the Angel game. I forget who it was. Same thing. Third strike, swings and misses, goes backstop. The guy realizes that it goes into a little jog. It's an epidemic, is my point.
I haven't seen any Orioles do it at the time.
You're not.
And if they did, they should probably be demoted immediately, right? Like there's no
the whole thing about this with Callaway. Now, Cano they love him in the clubhouse, but you can't do that. So if Callaway sits him down, who's on the hot seat, by the way, if he sits him down, now he's got everybody on the team PO'd at him. But I'm going, is that what you want? You want your guys not making an honest effort? I tell you, coaching and the pitchers hit, and you got to make. I've seen pitchers go into I could outrun them now. jogging that.
Sure.
You can't do that. You cannot do that. You got to make a decent effort.
The one thing I'll say that is that Manny Machado came under a lot of scrutiny in Baltimore and around the nation for his perceived lack of effort and base running, I guess you could call them maladies. He still is one of the most talented players in the entire game, and the amount that he does otherwise, like defensively and just at the plate, most likely for me negates any ill will I would feel towards him. Now, none of the players you just named, Robinson Cano is not at the point in his career where his production is so overwhelming that he can just sit in the batter's box and not do the little things, right? Like that's.
I never saw that in 12 years in the big leagues. I never saw anybody in Baltimore or Cincinnati go through the motions and run halfway.
Do you think any of it has to do with the all or nothing kind of stuff, like where you're looking for a homer, you didn't get it,
no,
so then you're just kind of like
easy. Anybody can run, and no one's saying you have to run 1,000%. Make an honest effort. If the guy throws the ball poorly, you're trying to win, and every little thing you can get. You got to take advantage of it. But this stuff, this epidemic, you see it everywhere. And the problem is no one says nothing to them really about it. Because this is an era when you have to call it, you put your arm around a guy. God, don't.
And also, which player is going to tell Robinson Cano that he's right?
Right. But somebody, the manager, if their manager's not going to do it or the coach is not, somebody's got, hey, we're trying to win here. They're in trouble up there.
Well, they've always been in trouble, right?
They got a pretty good team. They got a pretty good pitching staff.
Their pitching has been poorer this year than they expected,
and
that's the issue, right? Like that Pete Alonso kid is a hell of a hitter. He's a rookie who's already had like 15 home runs this year.
But you would think they would be better in the standings than they are with the players they have. But you can't have that. I mean, that's just wrong. But
it's an organizational culture problem there.
It's a league thing.
Just
but
the field.
With the Orioles' young players, these guys are hungry. You got to stay that way. Because you're trying to develop a winner, but going through the motions and doing it's just like Papelbon said to Harper, hey, you got to make a better effort. And they almost got in a fight in the dugout. But you do. Somebody has to, step up and say something. But again, you more coddle the players now. You're nicer to them. Forget about scolding them. You'll hurt their feelings. And then, and I know even at the minor league level, you got to be careful how you say things and what you say. But that's the way. But we talked about it earlier, the balls and strikes.
Yep.
There were 34,000 bad balls and strike calls last year. 34,000.
Some people call it charming.
Now, I mean, there are a lot of games, and it sounds like a whole lot, but it comes down to about 1.6 bad calls per inning. Now, most of the bad calls come from the older umpires. And I know how this works. The younger umpires, they make some of the better calls, but if you didn't call some pitches 3-0 strikes that were close,
sure,
the game would last another hour.
And that's you're getting some balls that are called strikes, and you're also getting some strikes that are called balls. Like it's probably evening out to an extent. The question becomes is like, does the human error in today's day and age should we have it?
It's better now than it was in 2008. It's 16.4% bad calls. Last year, 9.2. So the whole thing is, if you go to, and eventually, I'm pretty sure they will. They don't have the technology now. The box that you see it's not correct.
And they're working on, and this is a little like nerdy, but they're currently all the baseball stadiums have TrackMan.
Yes.
Involved with their stadiums, which is a way to measure the pitch spin rate and all that fancy stuff. They're going to transition now at the end of this season. They're installing the cameras now, I believe, to Hawkeye, which is the same system that they use in tennis.
It's about 10 more cameras, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
And so they're going to be having a little bit. Basically, what this will do is allow them to have a far more precise tracking.
Right. Well, looked into it a little bit deeper. To get this correct, they would have to have Doppler radar, optical tracking system with video, and you got to have an umpire. So my question is, and like I said, I'm sure they're going to have it. But
and the optical, that is what Hawkeye is. The portion of that would be Hawkeye.
Right.
There. So they're working toward it.
So there's going to be situations where it breaks down. It's not going to be working correctly all the time. There's going to be breakdowns. So you got your umpire who it goes for a while, and now he's got to call balls and strikes.
You'd hope he's capable of doing that, right? Like, I don't think you get to where, like, they're not going to have Hawkeye on college and little league and high school diamonds. I wouldn't think, right?
No.
Like,
no. You got to have umpires, but the thing is, I hate to see the human element taken out of it. The umpires, I've never heard anybody at the ballpark go, "Boy, we sure need a robotic umpire or something."
I don't know.
They love to razz the umpire.
I wish there was some sort of robotic element to the baseball when Nate McLouth hit that home run in New York, and I could have seen just how fair that was.
Yeah, I just don't. I'm obviously against it, but for several reasons, but
the human error aspect is charming. But then, like, we have situations where in a like with Galarraga, the pitcher for the Tigers, where that perfect game is taken from him.
You're right. No,
and so it's like it's charming until there's a situation where it's in a Game 7, and it's a call that like a team deserved to have a different outcome.
Yeah, but the best teams are going to win. And the umpires aren't going to take it away from them. Best teams are going to win.
Baseball can be a little wacky.
Oh, yeah. But I really believe the better teams win, and the umpiring is, it just...
Did you have favorite umpires and, like, least favorite umpires?
No, but what I did, I always was polite to them, always talked nice to them, just in case that borderline pitch, you might get it. But the whole thing with umpires, if you're able, and this is one of the problems now, if you're able to hit a spot, usually down and away, and you show you can keep doing that,
sure,
you can move it out a little bit.
Right.
You'll get it. You don't get it all the time, but a lot of times you will. And
I saw Cashner, I think, threw one that Severino was set up in the other batter's box. And it's like, what's the point of that? Like, they're not biting on that fastball. Like,
right. But a lot of times, one pitch will set up another pitch. And sometimes you can think 2 pitches ahead when you really get into a groove. And your better pitchers, your stars, are able to go one pitch after the other. And as soon as the ball leaves your hand, you know what you're going to throw. So that becomes really when you have to be dead focused on what's going on.
Right.
No outside. The one year I won 20 games in Montreal. I had the same stuff when I threw on the side in between starts that I did in the game, which was amazing. I didn't throw real hard, but hard enough, and I had a really good changeup. But you're able to keep and never got sore because everything was working together, and it was the most amazing thing. And that's what I wasn't able to do it year to year,
right?
And maybe game to game at times, but the better pitchers are able to do that, and that's fantastic. It's a lot of fun because, the catcher don't even have to put a sign down. Gary Carter, throw the ball, I'll catch it. So sometimes he wouldn't put it down. That wasn't good for the fielders,
right?
Because the fielders need to know what you're throwing.
Sure.
And where
sometimes it can, if you don't expect a breaking ball and it's breaking hard, it can be thrown.
One of the biggest things I learned over here with Baltimore is I'd throw a pitch, and if I hit a spot, there'd be a guy there to field it.
Yep.
But now, and they would move with the pitches. You don't see that now. The infielders don't move, and they're all in shifts and what have you. They don't know where they're supposed to be at.
When you talk about hitting spots, right? Were you aware of? They have metrics for it now, but were you aware of pitch framing? Was that something you guys considered?
It's where the ball crosses the plate. Now you can receive a ball sometimes, but it's totally. I think there's more to it, or there's more said about it now than ever before.
Sure.
But the guys can't throw the ball over the plate half the time. If you can't throw strikes consistently, you're not going to get pitches anyway. So now you're starting to try to frame balls, and you can't frame a ball 6 inches outside or a foot outside, which they're missing by feet now.
Yep.
So that's one of the things. So, yeah, it's you scratch your head. But hopefully in the future we're going to have a ex-Major League umpire on. We'll discuss this a little bit more and get his how he feels about it. So
we'll make our connection with Gary Kendall. You're listening to the Ross Grimsley Show here on PressBox Online, Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Ross, with Cashner, have you seen enough now? Is this the best? He had his best season in his career in Texas.
Right.
As far as how you've seen him pitch this season, is it fair to say this is as good as he's looked probably in his career?
It's better than I've seen him in the past. He's really done some, like I talked about earlier. He's been able to throw strikes. He's on top of the ball. His delivery is different than last year. So he's around the plate. changing speeds. The changeup has been a tremendous. I think he throws about 50% fastballs and a few more breaking balls. But overall, the changeup he's got a better average against left-handers than he does right-handers. So that's outstanding.
Encouraging,
right there.
to say the least.
He has really been doing a great job, and it's been fun to watch. And he's been one of the bright spots of the pitching staff. And actually, Bundy, the last three starts have done. He's
quietly turning around.
Everybody is getting all excited about he's not throwing as hard, but you know what? He's put up the last 3 games some tremendous numbers and really done a good job. So that's been good to see.
No doubt. We have Gary Kendall, so whenever you're ready.
Okay. Gary, you there?
I'm here, Ross.
Hey,
how
buddy.
you doing?
Well, here's Gary Kendall. He's been with the Orioles since 2014. Last 8 years with Bowie, the Orioles AA team. He's scouted. He's coached at college level. Tell us a little bit about your AAA stint so far.
Well, I'm enjoying it. I was, you always hear, I was at AA, of course, you mentioned, where I coached against you, Ross, and you always hear about the AAA stories. You might have told me quite a few, and I'm getting it firsthand. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the level. Plays are made more often. There's more consistent baseball. There's much more talent throughout a roster. It's just managing your roster. Some nights where you're short, it comes into a challenge. And some night you're managing, hopefully to win a game, but sometimes managing to get through a game. And when your roster's real short. But I'm really enjoying it. We got a good group of guys here. We have some guys that have been up into Baltimore before, and they're looking forward to maybe getting that opportunity again. And we're looking for we have some guys here that are younger and want to get that opportunity that haven't been given one yet. So it's been enjoyable.
Yeah, well, I know one of the problems at the AAA level, you got guys coming down that aren't real happy and guys that don't go up when they think they should, so that makes it even tougher for you.
Yeah.
But being shorthanded, and that's a lot of the times because you got to, this guy might not be able to pitch tonight. We got to take him out. Now we got to start this guy. That gets to be a problem because you're trying to protect the big league team, so I know how that is.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about, Mountcastle, Stewart, Cisco, Mullins came down. Give us a little rundown on what those guys, how they're doing, what they're doing.
Mountcastle is a guy that, of course, is on the radar and, signed with the organization at short, played primarily third last couple of seasons, and still does go over there so often. They like to see him go over there, a couple times every 2 weeks and just to kind of keep his reps going over there. But his first base progression has been going pretty good, Ross. I think his arm plays a tick up because of the fact that it's a much, I'm not saying an easier throw, but the 3.63s aren't as prevalent as the 5.43s, and some people that didn't think he had quite enough arm. I think it's playing much better at first, and he's making plays. He's reading hops over there, top spinners, and knows when to release back to the bag and allow the second baseman to handle it. Now, when now so much we're in the days of the shift, he makes good decisions on what he allows to get to his left or his right that the second baseman can handle. But he's been doing a nice job at first base. What he's been doing offensively is just very impressive. I mean, here's a young man who's, 22 years old. You put him in the middle of a AAA lineup with not a whole lot of, veteran leadership around him, which sometimes they like to do. And he's been holding his own, hitting doubles, hitting the ball in the alley. One of the things that's always been impressive about him is that, you'll see a pitcher that'll, have some sort of a plan against him, maybe if it's a slider in the dirt to finish him off for a fastball upstairs. And then when you try to do it again, he's the guy that makes in-game adjustments, and he winds up, hitting that mistake up in the strike zone, or that slider that does stay up in the strike zone and hits it in the alley and makes you pay. That's been the most impressive is his adjustments that he makes versus the breaking ball, the fastball. And there was always people that wanted him to walk more. He's a little bit of a free swinger, but, there's people that say a swinging bat's a dangerous bat, and he lets it go. But he's been giving us so much, as far as RBI production, some home runs, some doubles, but just some quality at bats. That's been the most impressive thing. He don't run bad. He's been a good decision maker on the bases. So, a lot of checks in the right box for Ryan Mountcastle. DJ Stewart's been having a great season so far, and the biggest thing is, it's funny because when I had him in Bowie, one time we talked about hitting off left-handers and how much he enjoys doing it because he stays closed with his front side. He's not a guy that has to pull the ball. And that's been the biggest thing, because he's an everyday player. He's not a guy that's just a platoon guy against righties. His numbers against left-handed pitching are really good. And he's a guy that stays in there. He stays on the breaking ball. He'll center it. He'll drive it up the middle. He plays the corners for us. Has not been in center field, but he's playing a solid left field and right field, strolling to the right bases. And I tell you, he could steal a base. I know in Bowie we had him run quite a bit, and he's got a couple of stolen bases here. So I really like what he's doing on the bases. But, Santander's a guy he missed a couple games recently due to a little bit of a jam shot. His hand was bothering him a little bit. But here's a guy that's playing a real good right and left field for us, a real good defender, switch hitter, got power from both sides. The thing that I see this year from the last 2 years that I've been around Santander's is right-handed hitting has improved. I think it's a faster bat than what I saw last year. It's more reminiscent of the year he had the year prior, his first year, his Rule 5 year that he was in. He split time between Bowie and I believe it was Frederick. But he's been doing a really nice job.
What about Cedric Mullins? He come down. Cisco had his chance last year.
Yeah.
What are you seeing from them?
Cedric came down and he didn't have any kind of like sometimes you come down and you're a little bitter and you felt but he came down and he was ready to go to work, and we've done a lot of extra stuff with him on the field, extra hitting, extra bunting. He doesn't have a lot of stolen bases, and a lot of times it's because of just how it sets up, as far as the score of the game, and maybe there's a runner on in front of him. But that was one of the objectives of him coming down, was to really get his bunting game, to utilize what kind of player he needs to be. And not to say he doesn't have power, because he has shown power. The ball does come off his bat, but he needs to put the ball on a line more. He needs to be more dimensional using the field instead of being just because honestly, I mean, they play him to pull. And I mean, here's a guy that when I think of Oriole players, and I just think of Oriole players, guys you played with, Rich Coggins, Al Bunbury, guys of that stature of a Cedric Mullins, to play those guys to pull a pull shift, it's crazy. and here's a guy that should be handsy, should use the field. If he hits a ball to an infielder that's off center, and he's not an 80 runner, but he's a plus runner, where he exits well from the left side, he should get a lot of leg hits. And they're the things that he needs to do, I think, to make him more attractive to the Orioles. And they're things that we're talking to him about, and his pitch selection, increasing his walks, being that guy that, you look over in that other dugout and you say, doggone, we don't want to walk this guy. This guy's a tough out, and that's what we want to do with Cedric. And Chance Cisco, of course, is our catcher down here along with Jesus Sucre. And, he threw a runner out the other night, which was nice to see. He's blocking and receiving better. Like to get him more into a take charge mode, to become a little bit more vocal, to run a pitching staff. I mean, the bat's been good. He's using the whole field and hitting some doubles, some home runs. Another guy whose numbers aren't bad against left-handed pitching, but the big thing with him is to take charge and to run a pitching staff and to really read swings. I mean, you look at good catchers, and you threw to many of them. There were guys that would put down signs because of what they felt from what they saw in the batter's box, what the pitcher's featuring that day, is his best pitch that day to breaking ball, and utilize those weapons that pitcher has. And that's where Chance has got to really put his best foot forward for me.
You talk about some of the pitchers on this staff. The one that stands out the most by far in his 8 starts, Keegan Aiken, has thrown 45 strikeouts in 40 innings, but perhaps most impressive is he's really limited the home runs, only allowing 2 in his 8 starts. How impressed have you been with his performance so far this year?
Well, I was fortunate enough to have him last year, and he was really a solid pitcher for us. But last year he was more of a thrower. This year he's more of a pitcher. Last year there were times that Kenny Steenstra and I would have him in the office and talk about his usage of his changeup and his slider, and he would say, well, I really didn't need it. And we said, well, we realize that, but, to pitch at the next level and the following level, which is the level you want to attain, and you want to survive and stay there, you better utilize the changeup and the slider and command it. And so, he makes a mental note of this. He goes to spring training. Of course, it's emphasized. And that's been the biggest thing. The other night I think he threw in that start, 6-inning start, I think it was around 20 changeups to 25 changeups. I think 16 were strikes. I think 6 of them were 3-2 count changeups for Ks.
Wow.
And, his usage of that, and, his slider, he's been developing on just a little bit of not a blister, like a little callus. That really hindered his slider the other day, and because of that, it kind of shut his slider down where it became just a fastball changeup pitcher, and it was really fun to watch. And it just, and as well as anybody, Ross, that how it can induce just weak contact, not just strikeouts with the changeup, but just get that guy just a little early where it's a 5-3 instead of a line drive to left, or to pop up the shallow center instead of a line drive to center. Just that little tick just throws you off that barrel off that ball a little bit, So he's been doing a great job. So he's maturing. He's in better shape. I think he sees what he can be, and whether it's a starter or reliever, but I think he can now see and visualize that he's got a chance in this organization.
Right.
So
well, we're talking to Gary Kendall here from the Live Casino Hotel Studio. Gary, real short, tell me with the new regime now, what is going on different in the organization?
Well, I tell you, I haven't spoke much to Mike or Sig as far as just hello, goodbye, that type of thing in spring training. Ken Qualls is our information man as far as our farm director, and lets us know what's going on or what the moves that need to be made, or but as far as the information that we're getting, Chris Holt's been a guy that who's preaching, not so much pitching backwards, but using pitches. If a guy has a third pitch he doesn't want to use, get it in play, put it in play, and start mixing it in where it's a pitch and it's usually a pitch that's needed in a 3-2 count, or a 2-0 changeup that the guy never wants to throw, and now we want to throw it. So in the pitching department, there's been more changes for me, just looking at it from the pitching department than the hitting department. But as far as the overall organization, I mean, I as far as anybody's come and told me how to run the ball club, or certainly you get an emphasis on guys on the roster are going to play more.
Right.
Certain guys play more than others, but nobody's come in and told me, we don't want to run here. We don't want to, play the infield in here. We don't want to play the infield back there. So they're allowing you to manage. I imagine we're being evaluated, which is great. And but there's open lines of communication with our AAA ball club here with Kent and our front office. So, I had more of I speak with Brandon Hyde usually on a week to 10-day basis just to kind of touch base on our ball club.
Yeah.
He's very positive. And basically he talks about what is going on up there that we need to address down here prior to them going up there, and the things that are, hitting the cutoff man.
Right.
Making sure of an out.
Big problem last night.
Yeah, there's so many times that if you just secure an out, let's say it's a bunt situation, and you think, well, okay, they bumped up 2 runners. Now all of a sudden we throw the guy out at first base, a ground ball gets 1 in, but it gets 1 in, not 2 or 3, or extends an inning, and all of a sudden you come up and score 3 and 4 and win a ball game. So just getting outs, there's 27, they're so cherished, and so he talks a lot about their woes and what they're going through, and things that we need to stress, or things that from watching our box scores, things that we need to do with these players.
Right.
Whether it's to, have them bunt more, have them, we do a lot of early work down here. I've never been to AAA, Ross, so I really don't know from years past, but I know we do a lot of early work.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it because, heck, Ross, that's what we did. I mean, I know when you were in Richmond and with the Giants, I'd see you out there early and, stuff, and we do the same thing here, and because it is about player development, because we weren't a good baseball team last year fundamentally, and we want to be a better one this year. So, I mean, if you don't spend time with those players, then that's not going to happen. And I enjoy going out early because I think we have coaches here that have a message, whether it's be bunting early or, defense, or emphasize hitting the cutoff man. You're going to see missed cutoff men. You're going to see a guy getting late to a position or a guy just getting under the ball just a little bit. But it can't happen nightly. And we even talk about it when we're winning. We had a good stretch there in Toledo. We swept, but we missed a cutoff man a couple times, and then, and everybody kind of brushes it under the table. But if we're in a dogfight in the 10th inning and you do that, it gets magnified. So it can't happen. It's never a good time.
Right.
And backing up bases, pitchers getting deep when they back up bases. Not just getting there, but get there and give yourself enough time you can make an adjustment if the ball's deflected either way. Things that, where you were taught when you were coming through the Cincinnati and Orioles organizations.
Right.
So,
well, Gary, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. A lot of good information. Hopefully we'll have you on again soon, but thanks again.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right. Outstanding.
Hey, good. Thanks again for the time. Always appreciate it, Gary.
Well, stop by Sliders, Baltimore's favorite local sports bar, to watch the big games, including Stanley Cup playoffs, NCAA lacrosse tournament, food and drink specials every day. Sliders, located 771 feet from home plate across the street from Camden Yards.
Love the folks over there at Sliders.
Yes, sir.
Been a fun time. Thanks to Gary Kendall for taking the time to chat a little bit about.
Give us a little idea of what's going on there. I know that's important.
I mean, DJ Stewart's a guy whose number I pulled up. We're looking at, and that's the question has been and remains: how much does Mike Elias and company need to see from a prospect before they say they're ready?
Yeah, I mean,
and 37 games is too small of a sample size to say this is who he is, but he has never hit this well at any stop in the minor leagues, and to do it now at the AAA level, it's encouraging. He has an over 400 on-base percentage.
Like you said, it's early, and you would rather bring them up later than too soon. We saw with Cisco last year, he wasn't able to handle some things.
And it's also interesting to hear, look, they're evaluating Cisco clearly on his defense.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's going to be, he could hit probably the cover off the ball and hit 300, and if his defense isn't good enough, that's the standard.
He had trouble throwing runners out earlier, but hopefully, and then again, what happens, in the draft is going to, be a big thing,
100%.
What they're going to do. But, yeah, it's quite interesting, but we got some information. I think Mountcastle is pretty close, but they're going to leave him there. He's going to have to, probably stick around a little bit, get more accustomed to first base, and as long as there's no spot for him up there yet, there's no rush.
Indeed,
no rush.
And thankfully, Davis is hitting far better than he was before, and so the pressure on maybe trying to force Mountcastle into a situation sooner than you might have otherwise has been relieved a bit.
Well, especially Davis, they're talking about the All-Star team. I won't even get into that.
If you want to talk about sample sizes, if you remove the early start, he's been the best hitter on the Orioles since. Let's hope he can continue it through the All-Star break and maybe make it a sample size that's impossible to ignore.
Really. Kyle, it's National Pet Month.
It is.
It's all of April. Or all of May. National Pet Month observed in May, like I said. It's a celebration of benefits of the pets that bring to our lives and vice versa. It's observed annually in the United States in May. National Pet Month aims to promote the benefits of pet ownership, support pet adoption, and make people aware of benefits of pets for people and people for pets. I mean, they do a lot to have them. I know they relieve stress, pain, protects your heart. Even kids, young kids with dogs.
Sure.
It helps their get rid of allergies. You won't get allergies as soon as when you grow up. So I just wanted to make that point.
Absolutely. Pets have been an instrumental part of my life.
We have pets, and we've always had them. My wife has driven across country with them, left a cat at a rest stop. I had to throw that out, but the kids weren't real happy. But anyway, that was, I just wanted to throw that out so everybody knew that.
Well, I think that should do it, right?
That's it. I think so. Next week, hopefully, we'll get we got a couple of chances to get some people on here. I want to talk about the umpire and get their perspective on this, so that should be good. But
we assume Stan the Fan will return next week.
Stan the Fan, absolutely.
Out distributing the new edition of Press Box. Be sure to go out and get your copy today.
Anybody with any questions, R. Grimsley 2 on Twitter, Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Don't be afraid to ask me a question, something we can talk about, and we'll throw her out there.
Sounds good.
All right, buddy. Cool, man.
Have a good one.